Hello again, dear lovely IELTS candidates, and welcome to another great episode with Ralph. And today we're going to talk about advantage and disadvantage essay. So first of all, we'll take a look at question. Let's see what the question is about, and then we'll talk about the basic structure of advantage, disadvantage essays, and then we'll start writing it. All right, that's the question. Many sports players advertise sports-related products. What are the advantages and disadvantages of this? All right, in writing advantage and disadvantage essays, we basically do not put our position or opinion about the question, all right? So our position is not needed, and you should generally end your introduction with a thesis statement, all right, which either indicates your plan and it explains that there are differences between the two sides or views, all right? So your position and your opinion is not included, is not needed. And then you should write two main body paragraphs, one paragraph for each side. For example, body paragraph 1 about advantage and body paragraph 2 about disadvantage, all right? And then you should include a clear topic sentence and 2 up to 3 points in each main body paragraph. And then you support all of the points in your main body paragraphs. You should support your points. So if, for example, you say that the advantages of this are, for example, 1, 2, 3, you should support each of these advantages, all right? And then you use the conclusion to explain that there are differences, and you repeat arguments you used. That is optional. It's not necessary. And you state your opinion, which again, it's optional. And you express a wish, hope, or suggestion. That's the overall plan of our essay in writing advantage and disadvantage. All right, guys, now it's time to write our outline. You know that always, before starting writing our essay, we should write our outline. Now, in writing our outline, we should write advantages and disadvantages. What are the advantages of this practice? So, first of all, let's talk about advantages. Well, you can include 2 or 3 advantages. I've seen that some students prefer to include 4 advantages. That's okay. If you have time and if you have some ideas that you can also explain more, you can include 4 advantages. But here in this essay, I'm going to talk about 2 main advantages of this practice. The first one is that items which are advertised are effective. What does it mean? It means that it develops self-confidence among, let's say, followers. All right, that is one advantage of this practice. The second advantage is that there's a great pleasure from copying their idols. So what is the consequence of this? It leads to confidence and sense of identity, again, among the followers, right? So these are the advantages of this practice. And there are also some disadvantages. There are 2 disadvantages. The first one is that advertising those products may exploiting their followers. So we only write exploit followers. So what do we mean by this? It means that products which are advertised are not used by the athletes themselves. They may never dream of using those products, right? They're just advertising those products in order to gain money. This is one disadvantage of this practice. Another disadvantage is that sometimes products are not healthy, all right? And this may lead to psychological damage among people who are under the, let's say, influence of those advertisements. So these are advantages and disadvantages, and this is our outline in starting writing our essay. So always remember, try to write your outline in less than 5 minutes, all right? And brainstorming is a very good way in let's say, promoting your ideas, in coming across with great views and opinions, all right? And then after writing your outline, you can start writing your introduction. So you know that you start your introduction with a general statement. Now, here, I want to, let's say, put general statement and the paraphrase of the question together. I'm going to combine these two sentences together in order to make one sentence. All right. So that is my sentence here. Over recent years, there has been a sharp increase in the number of commercials in which famous footballers, tennis players, and swimmers endorse equipment which they claim to use, or energy drinks which they promise will improve our performance. It's a very good idea to include some examples. For example, there are these are some examples that I've included here. For example, footballers, tennis players, swimmers. Instead of athletes, I've used some examples of the athlete itself. All right, and also I've used some examples like energy drinks. All right, or equipment. Now, as you can see, I've combined my general statement and the paraphrase of the question here, all right, into one sentence. So this sentence includes general statement and the paraphrase of the question together. Now, it's time to write about our thesis statement. Remember, in advantage and disadvantage essays, you should use your thesis statement to refer to both sides of the issue, all right? So you explain that there are differences between the two sides or views, or you can explain your plan. Now let's see, if I want to explain that there are differences between the two sides or views, my sentence would be something like this. Some commentators see this as positive, whilst other experts have grave reservations. This is one way to write our thesis statement. This is the way that you explain that there are differences between the two sides, all right? Now, if you want to explain your plan, you can write your thesis statement something like this. The following paragraphs will analyze the positive and negative aspects of this practice. So these are two main types of thesis statements that you can write in advantage and disadvantage essays. Now let's start writing our second paragraph, which is our first body paragraph. So we use main body paragraph to explain one side, all right? You should start with a clear and simple topic sentence, which explains what you will write about in this paragraph. So my first body paragraph starts with this topic sentence. This type of advertising can be beneficial in a couple of ways. This is a very, very good topic sentence. It tells the reader that you are going to write about benefits, advantages in this paragraph. Now, after writing your topic sentence, you should now write your first advantage. What is your first advantage? So you start with firstly, comma. Instead of firstly, you can write other phrases. For example, the first point worth making or noting or mentioning is that, and then you continue the rest of the sentence. Or, for example, the first thing to highlight or to mention or to note is that, and the rest of the sentence. All right? So instead of firstly, you can use these phrases too. If the items being promoted by world-famous sportsmen and sportswomen are genuinely effective, the fans who buy them will perform better when they use them. All right, now, when you talk about the first advantage, now you should explain more, or you need to support it, all right, to support by explaining it, or to explain its possible results, or you can give evidence from the real world, or you can give an example from your world, or you can explain what alternatives would look like. These are some ways that you can expand your answer. You can support your advantage. Now here, I'm going to write something like this. Consequently, they may develop greater self-confidence as they improve. they might play more sport as a result, which will develop their fitness. Now, when you say that, for example, this is the advantage, you can talk about its consequence. You can say, for example, consequently, this may result in this, right? So that is a good way to explain, to justify, or to support your point, which is your first advantage. Now, after explaining your first advantage, now it's time to write about your second advantage. What is the second advantage of this advertising? You can you can include some phrases or, let's say, cohesive devices like in addition. Instead of in addition, you can write additionally, or another point worth including or noting or mentioning or making is that, then the rest of the sentence. Now here, after this, you should put your second, let's say, advantage of this view, and then you explain that advantage. Many youngsters derive great pleasure from copying their heroes. Now you should explain it. What is the result of this? Or you can give some examples from your personal life, or you can give evidence from the real world, right? Wearing the same trainers and headband, using the same racket or goggles, and even putting on an identical muscle relaxing cream to their idols give teenagers in particular enjoyment, confidence, and a sense of identity. All right, so I'm giving some examples that, for example, when someone uses or wears these items that are advertised by their heroes or idols, they kind of feel enjoyment or confidence or a sense of identity they get from these items. All right, so this is the way that I explain, I provide support to expand or explain my second advantage. All right, that's the end of our first main body paragraph. Now it's time to start writing our second body paragraph. Now, in this paragraph, we should write about disadvantages. And as you know, when you write your second body paragraph, which actually is the opposite of the previous paragraph, you should start with some cohesive devices that shows the contrast. For example, however, you should start your second body paragraph with the word however. Instead of however, you can also write nevertheless, or although there are indisputably positive elements, than the rest of the sentence. Now, as you know, you should start your paragraph with a topic sentence, which says that there are also some drawbacks or disadvantages, all right? However, the negative aspects of this practice need to be mentioned. A very good topic sentence. This is very good. Perfect one. It shows the reader that in this paragraph, you're going to talk about the downsides or drawbacks or the disadvantages of this trend. All right. Now, we start with the first disadvantage. And you know, the phrases that you should use in starting your, let's say, in talking about the first disadvantage. For example, in the previous paragraph, we wrote firstly. Now we change it here. The first thing to highlight is that. This is the phrase that I write here in this paragraph. Top sports stars are role models to their supporters, and it is easy for them to exploit vulnerable followers. So I'm talking about exploitation, something like this. What does it mean? I should support. I should support by explaining it, or explaining the possible results, or giving some facts from personal life, or evidence from the real world, all right? Companies which produce sportswear understand this and desperately try to persuade well-known athletes to endorse their goods. Some stars promote products which they would never dream of using, and this is morally wrong. This is the way how I support the second disadvantage. Now, after this, I should write my second disadvantage. And again, I should include some phrases. As you remember in the previous paragraph, I wrote addition in addition, right? Now, I use this phrase here. It should also be noted that. This is a very good phrase too, right? You can include in your essays. It should also be noted that purchasing items in order to be similar to a sporting superstar is not necessarily healthy. So I'm talking about let's say, not items that are, or not products, not energy drinks that are advertised by sports, by athletes, are not that much healthy, right? Now, I should support by giving some examples. Adverts which encourage the public to buy certain brands may be doing psychological damage. Consumers need to know that success is achieved through dedication, commitment, and effort rather than by buying a pair of Nike shorts. Now here, I could also include some examples from personal experience or evidence from personal life, or evidence also from the real world. You can also refer to energy drinks that, for example, experts have demonstrated that these energy drinks are not that much healthy, but they are also advertised by so many athletes around the world. All right, so this is a very good example too. So you can also include in your essay. Now, after writing your second body paragraph, now it's time to write your conclusion. And you start the conclusion by supporting what you wrote in the main body. All right. Obviously, this practice can have both positive and negative consequences. This is exactly the same as your thesis statement. Whatever you said, you wrote in your thesis statement should be paraphrased here, should be restated here. All right. So again, in the first sentence of your conclusion, you should also talk about that, yes, there are positive and negative consequences of this practice. Now, after that, in advantage and disadvantage questions, it is not necessary to include your opinion. And you should definitely not include it in the introduction, all right? However, you can include it in the conclusion. It's optional, really. You can include your opinion or you cannot include it. It's up to you. For example, here, I've included my opinion here. Overall, I am personally wary about this type of endorsement and fear that it may be harmful. This is my opinion, all right? There are also some alternatives that you can include instead of your opinion, all right? For example, you could summarize ideas from the main body. Now, instead of your opinion, I can write this sentence instead of my opinion in the second sentence. For example, this type of endorsement can improve young athletes' performance and positively affect their self-confidence. At the same time, it can be exploitative to send inappropriate messages to youngsters. This is another way of, let's say, summarizing ideas from the main body to include in your conclusion after the first sentence. All right? So, in the second sentence of your conclusion, in advantage and disadvantage essays, you can include your opinion, but if you do not want to include your opinion, you can summarize the main points in your main body paragraphs, right? And the last sentence can be your wish or your hope or suggestion. So this is also optional, but it is often good to end your essay with a wish or a hope or, let's say, a piece of advice. For example, I would like to see social scientists carrying out research to determine what effects it actually has, especially on vulnerable youngsters. That is the way that I end my conclusion. All right, guys, that's the all for today. We learned how to write about advantage and disadvantage essays. We'll also work on this type of essay more. We'll try to answer some other questions to see how we can expand, how we can explain, how we can support our ideas in two main body paragraphs, and also how to write general statement, and also how to write thesis statement in introduction, and how to write conclusion too. So that is not the end of advantage and disadvantage essays. We'll talk about advantage and disadvantage essays more. So stay tuned, and don't forget to comment. If you have any questions, you can simply ask in comments. I will answer all your questions. And don't forget to press the like button. I hope you've enjoyed today's lesson. Until next time, enjoy your time, and goodbye.